Leadership and Yoga fam. I'm in Miami. Hi. Welcome into this episode. It's not going to be a normal episode. So, if this is the first solo episode that you are ever listening to by chance of the Leadership and Yoga podcast, you're welcome to stick around if you want a little bit of behind the scenes, unedited, whatever comes out sort of podcast that's going to take you right into the heart of the inspiration that I'm feeling these days and everything that's going on, then I'm happy to have you here. However, you're also welcome to take a look at the other solo episodes that I've recorded and find a subject that feels aligned for you because my goal, first and foremost, with this podcast is to add value and add inspiration to your life and to your day. And I know that there is so much noise in the world these days. And so I try to really bring you something special and bring you something that hits from the heart. So while today's episode, I guess you could say, is not planned, and I'm very aware that if you're watching the video, right, that one should not record with a window behind them for best lighting. But you know what? I wanted to capture the beautiful ocean view behind me. And if you can't see my face as well, that's all right. You can just focus on the ocean or you can just close your eyes and tune into the message. But I'm going to speak to you very genuinely today. I'm going to give you a behind the scenes of my recent episodes and interviews that I recorded with Kino, with David Swenson, with Jonah Kest, and also my own growth and my own progress and my own teachings, my own book, which I have not spoken to you directly about on the podcast yet. So sit back, relax, but also lean in. Today on the Leadership and Yoga podcast is a spontaneous episode, and we will see what comes out. First and foremost, I'm having a magical time in Miami, and that's thanks to a lot of things. It was a feeling that I had coming in, but it's also thanks to a dear friend of mine, Annie, and I'm actually hanging out with her these days. She's somebody that I met on one of my retreats in Costa Rica. And I'm so grateful. It's so funny how these things happen, right? Where I remember sitting around the retreat table with her, and she showed me the actual post on Instagram that she found that then led to her following me, which then eventually led to her coming to my retreat. And this was 2 years ago, more or less. And now I just got to go and take her class. And it was a beautiful full circle moment, especially because at my retreat, it was the first time that she experienced rocket yoga. And rocket yoga is my passion. If you follow the podcast, you probably have heard me speak about rocket yoga many times before. But she found a love for rocket yoga, has now taken many rocket trainings herself, and now teaches rocket yoga. And she's a wonderful teacher. And it was just this beautiful moment that I had. So if you're in the Miami area, I highly recommend you check out her class. I'm going to link her information in the show notes. And yeah, I think that in these past couple weeks, even these past couple months, I've had the experience of feeling like I'm walking from miracle to miracle. I've had this feeling of course, catching myself trying to control outcomes and trying to control what exactly happens. But at the same time, it's getting to the point where everything that I'm doing is such a gift and it's not expected. It's it's completely unexpected and therefore it's like however it turns out is great because I was never expecting any of this to happen in the first place. From the moment that I arrived into Miami, we went to this restaurant, and this restaurant had dragonflies all over. It had them like on the tables, it had them on the menus, on the receipts, just these little tiny dragonflies. And if you know anything about me as well, you will know that the dragonfly is a massive symbol for me. Maybe you are a fellow fan of the Gene Keys and you may be familiar with the importance of the dragonfly and the story of the dragonfly. But this feels like a good place to start this entire episode because it's so symbolic for everything that's going on. And I love a clear story. There's something that I've realized is that a lot of times we get caught in these sort of intangible explanations of things. And we can go really deep and we can say some really profound things. But if there's no resonance, if there's no tangible way that my mind can picture it and ground it down into me, it usually is forgotten. As beautiful as it is forgotten. But for me, I never forgot the story of the dragonfly once I heard it. And I have an episode actually on the dragonfly's dream if you want to go back and listen to it. I've put it with a bit more music and poetry than I'm going to tell it to you right now. But in short, we're all familiar with the story of the butterfly. Goes into the cocoon, it completely retreats from life, and its body is reformed into something new. And when it emerges, it just emerges into the world as something beautiful and transformed, a completely new creature. The dragonfly isn't like that. The dragonfly doesn't stop, it doesn't retreat. It actually cracks out of its old version of itself, and it can spend up to 2 to 3 years underwater. And from the moment that it takes itself to the surface, one day it climbs up on a stick or on a leaf and it gets out into the sunlight. And the minute that the sunlight touches its body, it begins to activate something deep within its DNA. And wings are pushed out of its body using the water that was in its body like a hydraulic system. Wings are pushed out of its body where previously there were none. And sometimes within an hour, it can fly. And the minute that it takes flight, it is the number one predator of the sky. Nothing can beat it. But it's new, right? It doesn't have experience. It wasn't always a creature of the sky, it was a creature of the deep. And this story is so important to me for two reasons. One is because of what it means for you and for me, of course, because we are all the dragonfly. Of course, this story is about dragonflies, but it's not really about dragonflies, it's about you. We must take ourselves to the surface. We've got to figure out which way is up and which way is down, which things are energy giving to you in your life, what people are energy giving to you in your life, and what people are energy taking. What things and places and responsibilities look good on paper but feel bad in your heart. What way is up and down? What feels like you're heading towards the light and which feels like you're burying yourself deeper down into the muck, getting even more stuck than you ever thought was possible. Right? That first part is that awareness. And then the action of taking yourself to the surface, showing up every single day. That could be getting on your mat. That could be showing up to write. That could be going out on a limb, making a new friend, moving in a new direction, allowing yourself to dream. It takes work and there's difficulty in the beginning. There's difficulty in the beginning, but you get closer to the surface, you start to feel a little bit different. You feel like there's a whole new reality that it has always existed that you've never really experienced, and you have the sense that it's there, but you haven't really taken that first breath of air. You don't know how it's going to feel until you get there. And then what's super symbolic about the dragonfly is that then nature takes over. Then you realize you were living in the magic realm. Synchronicities, things, you end up sitting places that you would never have been able to plan that you were going to be sitting. And that's the beauty of it. So you got to take yourself to the surface, but you've also got to relax and surrender into the knowing that there's a heck of a lot of things going on that you actually don't control, that are going to make you feel propelled along as if pulled by a force, sometimes as if by magic. Sounds kind of crazy and out there, but it's important for us to realize. Yeah. So when we think about the dragonfly in this story, this tangible thing that we can really wrap our minds around, and then we can actually see them everywhere in the world too. If you're lucky, you get to see dragonflies often, like I do. I never thought that I was going to write specifically about dragonflies. I actually did not plan to write a book or anything like that. My husband's actually writing a book right now. He actually just finished it. So there's a lot of things happening at once right now for us. It's crazy. I was basically on the day that I hit a major goal of mine, a long-term goal that honestly kind of faded away, but a goal that was important to me in terms of numbers on social media when I started all of this maybe 3 years ago. Takes a little bit of time, difficulty in the beginning, right? I realized that had happened. And then at that same time, he stood up and walked over to me and stood there. And I'm like, "You just finished your book, didn't you? I can tell by the look on your face you just finished your book." It's an incredible book, by the way. I'm going to interview him on the podcast. I have one interview with him, and he's from Venezuela. So if you know anything about what's going on in Venezuela, you'll know how these times are right now for Venezuelans and for myself and for my family, for our family. Um, if you don't know much about it, you can listen to his older interview, but there's a better, higher quality one coming. And there's also an incredible book on his story and his actual path of also walking from miracle to miracle, um, each and every step of the way in a completely different way than I did, without even realizing it, without having any techniques or any yoga or anything like that. That's kind of one of our fun facts, is that he's not a yogi. He's actually never taken my class. And that's now like a silly thing where like we've got to wait for the perfect class for you to take the class. But anyways, all of this is happening. And so maybe I was subtly, subconsciously influenced to write a book, just being around him and watching that unfold. But this summer, before we moved from Austin, Texas, we're living down in Austin, Texas, and we were staying in the woods, which is funny to say the woods, because for me, the woods being from Washington is like crisp and cool and pine trees and smells good. And it was hot. It was the middle of summer. It was like 100 degrees. And so I went and rolled out my mat. It was like hot yoga outside in the woods, which I guess is actually kind of cool experience to have. I roll out my mat and I brought my journal with me, and I wanted to start to do my Dharma style sun salutations. I've been really enjoying Dharma style yoga recently, especially for my personal practice. Feels really good, heart opening focus for me. And each and every time I went to reach up and back, as you do at the start of the Dharma sun salutation style, I would forward fold and I would lean down and I would scribble a note into my notebook over and over and over again. I would barely get through one round of the sun salutation. And then I would sit and I would write and then I would start again. And I felt like I was just trying to get ideas out of my mind. But each and every time I was reaching up and back, it was like I was reaching up and pulling down ideas in through my fingertips and grounding them down into my feet, deep into the center of the earth through the mat. I was just visualizing this happening, and then up and back out my pin over and over. I just was grabbing ideas and down. And it became like this feeling that I sometimes get with when you get a creative idea, which is like drinking from a fire hose. It's like too much, too quick, all at once. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I had all these ideas, but I didn't want to write a poetry book. And I wanted, if I'm going to write something, I want it to be a story. It's really important to me, this idea of stories, as you probably know on the podcast. And then all of a sudden, I started to literally hear the dragonfly's dream, the dragonfly's dream, the dragonfly's dream, which is Gene Key, comes from Gene Key 55. That's the first place I ever read about the dragonfly. And the minute that I heard it, I couldn't unhear it. It was just in my brain. It was almost like kind of, I mean, it was exciting, but it was also kind of like, am I going insane? Am I okay? Because I can't stop. I was in the shower. It's like dragonfly's dream. I was cooking dinner, dragonfly's dream, dragonfly's dream. I was trying to map out the idea, and I drew this beautiful map of the whole process of the transformation of the dragonfly, and weaving in all of the different things and ways that I've learned, things about like levels of energy, and yeah, understanding how we might live life in a way that is really empowering and also really impactful to those around us. And it just flew out. It literally flew out. And now, of course, comes the hard part, which is that difficulty in the beginning of starting to type away and starting to type the first chapter. I actually shared the very first part of the first chapter with my little monthly newsletter for the Leadership and Yoga fam. So if you want to be on the monthly newsletter, you can always join that. I'll put the link in the show notes for this one. On there too, I open up opportunities for yoga teacher roundtables, which are these awesome free community events. Like I'm actually about to record in the next hour. I have one of these roundtable events where we sit down with like a group of 10 of us and everybody gets to contribute a little bit to the podcast and then it airs live on Spotify. It's a good time. So if that sounds like something of interest to you, you want to meet some other awesome yoga teachers who also care about leadership and who care about seeing their own potential, but also living in an aligned way for themselves and for the world, maybe that sounds like something that is of interest to you. And while we're on this subject of the offerings that I have, I also want to speak really genuinely to you about two of my sponsors for this show. And as you can see, I don't have a script or anything like that to share with you today, but I I do want you to hear about them and know that uh, each and every person or thing that I work with, it's really intentional, and I've really vetted them. And I think that if you are looking for any of these things that are being offered by them, I would have no reservations in recommending them to you. So, first and foremost, I have Tend, which is Ayurvedic self care created by my friend Art. And Art is actually a fellow longtime listener of the Leadership and Yoga podcast. That's how we met. That's how we've been in contact over the past couple of years through her generous little gifts that she would send me here and there. And even without her asking, I just literally started to share about them on the podcast. And now she's an official sponsor of the show. And to celebrate this, we actually have a giveaway for you. So, this is the last opportunity that you have to enter the giveaway because it will be announced on December 12th. And it is a tend yourself and a friend giveaway, which means that if you win, you will receive a care package for you and you will receive a care package to give to a friend or to a loved one because the greatest joy is in the giving. Am I right? So, if not to do it for you, go enter for that friend if you want this holiday season to have a real high energy gift. And yeah, it's a zero waste. It's a really special brand and it's a special product. The second thing I want to share with you is that this podcast is brought to you in part by Offering Tree. And Offering Tree is an online software for us yoga teachers, specifically for studio owners. And the thing that stands out to me about them more than anything else, because people ask me all the time to share a little bit more about why it is that I'm working with them, it's that they're real people and they really care about you. And that makes such a difference in this industry. They understand our pain points, they understand our needs. They have everything in one place for us. They have a website builder that's easy to use that you actually can control. You can update it anytime. You can have all of your offers listed on there. Like you'll notice my yoga teacher roundtable offer is actually on Offering Tree too. So if you go to sign up for that, you'll see the offer that I'm using the Offering Tree platform for that. Everything from your financial reporting is there. You can have an online library of all your classes, or you could have a course on there, right? These are usually really big ticket things, but they've put it in a way that's so accessible that it really makes me smile. So if you've been looking for a little first step in organizing your business and yeah, systemizing things. It's been a year of systemizing things for me, and it's made all of the difference for my growth. Maybe this is your sign. You can go and check out Offering Tree. The link is in my show notes. And, if you use that link, you're going to get a free trial and you're also going to get 50% off your first 3 months. And they've got a winter special going on right now, too. That is through December 15th. Don't worry if you missed it if you're listening to this later, but if you're before that, I especially encourage you to go and check that out and yeah, see what is there for you with Offering Tree. And please remember to tell them that Shauna sent you. All right. Thank you for listening to that. I appreciate you. Okay. So let's talk about why I'm here in Miami. And I'm so glad, by the way, that I brought my microphones because I never travel without, well, rarely travel without them if I'm traveling for anything that I know I'll be working during, because you just never know. And it's funny because it usually causes a conversation at the airport. But this time I got stopped and I thought for sure it was the podcast microphones. And they were like, no, 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 it's something sharp. And I was like, oh my gosh. And they're like, it's in the bottom of your bag. What is sharp in the bottom of your bag, ma'am? And I started to kind of sweat. I was like, did somebody put something there? Like what would be there? Like, I don't have any weapons. What could I have forgotten about that I accidentally left in the bottom of my backpack? I was starting to get a little bit nervous about it. And then they dig all the way down to the bottom of my backpack. And you know what they pull out? They pull out my juggling balls. They pull out my juggling balls and they start to inspect them. And they're like, there must be little metal beads in here. It was so silly. I was like, of course, being stopped for the juggling balls. I love juggling, by the way. I've been juggling for years. My dad taught me how to juggle when I was young. But recently, I've been really enjoying it as a little break. And so after this, and after I record the Yoga Teacher Roundtable episode, after a long week of work and not as much sleep as I often get because of all the excitement here in Miami, I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to juggle and I'm going to lay on the sand and I'm going to do absolutely nothing. But we enjoy so much more resting fully when we work fully and we fully devote ourselves to things. And so I'm here because I had the opportunity to interview two wonderful teachers, Kino MacGregor and Jonah Kest, right after each other, which is also fun. And last week I had an interview with David Swenson, as you may have seen. He's always one of my favorite guests to have on the show. And so it's always funny for me to meet people in real life, whoever, right? People that maybe it's even just a mutual friend. And yeah, you meet them in real life. You don't know how they're actually going to be, if they're going to meet your expectations or whatnot. But I have to say that I was so genuinely impressed by both of these two, by both Kino, by both Jonah, by their kindness, by their warmth, by their personable nature. Because not every time that I meet somebody and interview somebody is that the case. Every interview is special in its own way, and I get it, right? People are really busy. We've got a lot going on. But the things that I noticed about both of these two is just how many questions they asked me about myself, and they wanted to know things genuinely, and they were genuinely excited for the interview. And that makes all the difference. And yeah, it was quite a rush to, I think, just recently in general, be sitting places with people and the intense nature of an interview where you're really staring into people's eyes for a long time. You really feel their energy and it really hits you in a special way. Actually, this is something you can try with everybody. Everybody has this energy about them when you stare into their eyes. The energy is different, but everybody's got a certain energy. And you can try this out with a friend or with a loved one and just look into their eyes, kind of like a staring contest. You know, if you ever did a staring contest when you were a kid, and you will notice how much you kind of flinch and you want to look away because it's too much, it's too direct, it's too intimate, right? And one of my friends, Natasha, who I also met through yoga, I met both of my best friends, Natasha and Katie, through yoga. So I love the community that yoga brings us, especially because there was a point when I didn't have a single friend who was into yoga. Oh, just over 3 years ago, I didn't have a single friend, y'all, that was into yoga. I'm not joking you. But my friend Natasha's an expert with eye contact. I admire it so much how she's just able to just stare right into your eyes. So I'm not quite that bold, but I've been getting more and more immune to it. But yeah, there's certain moments where I'm sitting with certain people and I'm like overwhelmed and just entranced by their energy. And that was really a fun experience um, to have this past week. It's almost like the feeling of heating up, like things heating up, things speeding up. And I think this is an important note that I want to give because what I didn't understand 3 years ago when I started this podcast, because the podcast just turned 3 years old, is that at the beginning of any project, there's this moment of inertia. The ball is not rolling. You're just kind of stuck and you're pushing really hard and you don't really have anything to do. There's not like a lot going on. And then the minute that the ball starts rolling, it is just like dramatic. You feel like you can't handle it and you've got to go quicker and quicker and you've got to save the momentum and you've got to keep after it. And really, that way of thinking and that way of acting can spiral out of control really quickly. I've seen it happen for many people around me in my life, and I've witnessed it for myself too. And it was kind of happening to me before this trip to Miami, honestly, because there's a lot of things coming up that feel like really big, important moments for me. And if you're not careful, you kind of slip into that scarcity mindset where you're like, this has to work out in this way. Like, I have to be feeling this way. I have to do this before this person has to arrive at this time. And I need this particular clip and I need this to happen. And when you act like that, you really put yourself at a risk of being let down because of your expectations. Expectations are the quickest way to unhappiness. The quickest way. They're so sneaky, the sneaky little expectations about everything, about vacations, about holidays, about yourself, about other people. Yeah. So I was catching myself trying to control and get everything ready and feeling like I need to improve the quality of all my things. And I'm never going to get it done if I don't do it now. And I had hit this mark of 10K followers on Instagram. And my family wanted to celebrate it with me. They wanted to take me to a dinner. And I was feeling so stressed and I was feeling so anxious. I was actually feeling like I couldn't breathe because I felt like I had so many things to do. I felt like I had so many things to do that my mind was like spiraling out of control, sort of. And I had told them, like, no, I really can't do that. Like, I just want to stay at home. I just want to relax. And then within moments of saying that and going back to working on whatever I was working on, I just started to get this sinking feeling in my stomach like, no, you got to celebrate everything, celebrate every single step. And I can't put off the celebration for something bigger always because I will always be putting off the celebration for something, waiting for when I've actually made it or when I've actually gotten to God knows where. I'm never going to get there. If it's not enough now, it will never be enough. It will never be enough. It's like my own rule. Luckily, I realized it and I called them back and I said, I'm going. Let's go. Let's celebrate it. Whatever. And after a good meal and after a good time, guess what? Everything is easier. And you actually usually work on things a lot more quickly because your mind is sharp like it wasn't before. That's a big lesson for me that I've learned through this entire process is that if you're feeling like stagnant, if you're feeling like it's an uphill battle, what you're working on, stop. Don't continue to thrash your way and try to push your way through the sticker bushes. You step back and realize there's a path like right to the left of you that is already cut and you can go through there. That's really important for me. Yeah. So I think on this subject of because I guess I'm talking a lot about I don't even want to call them necessarily manifestations because I've replaced the word manifestation for synchronization recently, and that feels a lot more aligned. I actually have an episode on this. It's called, I think if you search synchronization within my podcast, it'll come up, but I think it's like manifestation or synchronization. But I explain this a lot more, what it means, because in short, because this is now a tangent from what I was just about to tell you, but in short, what happens when we want to manifest something often is that We long for it, we hope for it, we wish for it, we really, really want it. And that implies separation from the thing. And we can never have something that we feel separate from. We can never be something that we feel separate from. We'll always feel like an imposter. We'll always feel like it's just out of our grasp. Like we can't just quite get there. It'll always feel like that. Whereas with synchronization, the idea is that when you can stop, when you can get really present, and I think you know these moments of presence that feel really magical. They feel good. They're simple. They're um, sitting out on your balcony, even if you don't have a balcony where you can see the edge of the earth. And if you do, man, you're really, really get a little extra juice from Mother Nature herself. But sitting outside in the cold, even if it's raining and crappy, and having a coffee, having a tea or whatever it is, that moment where you're fresh in the morning, maybe you have not opened your phone, you feel in these moments of presence like nothing is wrong. You're not worried about anything. You're not feeling incomplete. You're not feeling unworthy. And the minute that you get into that state, anything is possible for you. Then, and only then, you're really changing, right? You're going up and above and beyond, and you're feeling so grateful. You're not sitting there like forcing yourself to feel gratitude, like, I am grateful, I am grateful, I am grateful. No, no, no. You're never going to get it in that way either. It's a complete stepping back from it. And in my experience, I come in and out of this feeling in my life. And there's always, when you're away from it for a little while, there's always a couple days, sometimes even weeks, where it takes a bit to get back into it. But once you find it, you get it a little bit, and you'll know what I'm talking about. You you kind of have a key for what works for you. And you try to exist a little bit more in that energy each and every day. That's it. And you can have inspirations and things that inspire you, but then it's no longer about whether or not they happen because you already feel such deep contentment for where you're at. Anyways, that's the idea of synchronizing yourself, just aligning yourself, I guess you could say, a coherent heart and coherent brain, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says. I love his series, by the way, on Gaia, Rewired by Joe Dispenza. 13 series, or what is it called? Episodes, or I don't know if they're called episodes. Anyways, short films. It's 13 of them. And that's a great reset if you want to like reboot your way of your mindset and all of that. But what I was going to speak to you about in this idea of manifestations, like I've been speaking about a lot of what I'm receiving from this. And a huge shift for me is moving beyond just that little ripple effect of like do something nice for somebody else around you, but actually out into the world as a whole, into elevating the general level of energy of the entire environment, the entire country, the entire world, which sounds so dramatic. Um, but the reason why this is so special is because you can't ever see it in the moment, usually until after you've done it. But when you give something to somebody, you find that there is great, great glory in the giving. There's more enjoyment often in the giving than there is in the taking. The taking is like a thirst you could never satisfy. Giving is like, it'll just put a little bounce in your step your whole day long. And I realized that it's as much fun to be somebody else's manifestation or make their dream come true than it is to see your own manifestations come true. And a really simple, small one is that I have this guided journal that I created with Katie, one of my best yogi friends, as I was speaking about. And it's a physical hard copy of it. It's a really beautiful guided journal that has our writing in it and our work in it. And I like to give them often to podcast guests when I have an in-person interview with them, as much as I remember to do it. And that's the thing. I brought them here to share with my guests, and I forgot both times. So womp womp. Oh well. But instead of doing that, I ended up actually gifting it to somebody that I met while I was here. I gifted both of them, but in this one particular case, I gifted it to somebody who told me that she enjoys the podcast and loves the Dharma Mitra interview that I did, and that's the connection with the podcast. And I gave her the journal. I was like, "I have a little gift for you. You can have this, take it, enjoy." And she said that it's really crazy because she's been wanting to start writing, and that this morning was the very morning that she actually made herself sit down and write. And she actually took that first initial step, and then the journal arrived. And I was like fulfilling my role in the greater divine plan to give her that journal because she had taken that first step. And that's magical, right? This takes us right on back full circle, right on time. Yeah, it's about time. To the idea of the dragonfly, where you've got to take yourself to the surface. You must start stepping in the direction of the light. And then guess what? Once you get close enough to the light that it starts to touch you, well, get ready because little things are going to appear. I could have never known that I didn't, put out my hand and be like, oh, yes, a rider. She started this morning. Bam, here you go. Completely a mystery, but there it is. So I hope that you have enjoyed today's little mysterious, magical episode. And yeah, I guess a bit behind the scenes of this trip. And stay Stay tuned. That was my alarm. I was like perfectly almost time. It's time for the yoga teacher roundtable, but stay tuned for more episodes with a little bit more logic and order mixed in with them. But until then, all the love and all the power to you. I believe in you. Thank you for being here, and I will catch you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.